And we are live. Guys, I'm very happy to have a good friend of mine, a guy who lives, 20 miles away from where I used to live in Illinois. Have many good memories of that place and a few bad ones. But
DeKalb
anyway,
County Chronicle.
yes,
That
yes.
was a good memory.
Yes, it was. I just want to tell you guys that if you're listening in one of the other places, I just got on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and a bunch of other platforms. If you're listening on one of those, go ahead and log in to my Facebook group entitled "Let's Talk Fishing," and then you can feel free to interact with us, ask questions, make comments. But without further ado, I have a good friend of mine, expert ice fisherman Todd from Northern Illinois. How you doing tonight, Todd?
We're doing fine. Kind of a shame that today she warmed up to 50 degrees, kind of put a little damper on the growth of our ice this evening.
Oh, yeah. Is it going to get cold again tonight, though?
No, you know what? It's not. It's still in the 40s. We had some single digits, and we started building ice. Matter of fact, the Kishwaukee River was starting to freeze over, and there was clumps of ice on the Fox River.
Wow.
So when it's that cold, when you have moving water, our smaller impoundments and backwaters, then it's serious.
Man, I spent many a cold night out there on the Kishwaukee River catching walleyes when it's, about 20 degrees outside, but that was in open water.
Where was that?
Elgin.
Oh, Elgin on the Kish?
No, not on the Kish, on the Fox.
You were on the Fox River. Yeah, I was going to say yeah, because there's a North Kish and a South Kish, but.
Oh, yeah, over there south of Rockford, I caught some walleyes on the Kish, but that was.
That and the Rock River, flows into the Rock.
Oh, yeah. The Rock River, I caught lots of walleyes on the Rock River. Geez, from the very top of the rock all the way down.
Yeah, there's really good fishing. And Coon Creek Casters, club that I belonged to for many years, that's part of their program is to stock walleyes in the Rock River.
Yes.
The Coon Creek Casters, club out of Belvedere, one of the older clubs in Illinois, in a club that has a lot of money, because being a speaker and touring the circuit, whether it's the muskie clubs, the walleye clubs, different fishing clubs throughout the Chicagoland area, while I'm there, I get to listen to the financial report, and there's not one other club that within 200 miles that carries the kind of dollars that club does. The Coon Creek Casters, every year, because they have different types of fundraisers, their Carpathon that, can raise throughout the year with different events, like $40,000. And being a 501(c) club, you have to spend that money. So whether they're spending 10 grand on a handicap pier at a forest preserve and stocking fish, college scholarships, the Coon Creek Casters, every year they're just, giving back to the community.
That's really good that you say that, because I tried to start back in the early 2000s, I tried to start an effort to restock the Rock with walleyes, and the DNR pretty much told me, why should we do that? They just swim away. Why should we stock fish anywhere? Because the guys are just going to catch them and eat them. Come on, really?
Yeah,
Illinois, but
but it's the bureaucracy of government, and it doesn't matter. You look at the trials and tribulations that even in Minnesota on Mille Lacs that they've had over years, where it's no fish or a one walleye limit that's got to be over 20 some inches or a slot. It's bureaucracy. And a lot of these people and smarter than you and I, but they think they're smarter than Mother Nature.
Well, I'd like to hear about you have gone on some really interesting ice fishing trips in the past. Do you have any plans on going anywhere really cool this year?
I don't think I touched you, and I know I didn't, but so like last year I went to Lake Winnipeg. Lake Winnipeg is one of those destinations, like Lake Erie, Cascade for the perch, that are just epic destinations to go and, catch trophy fish. So last March, I was gone for, I don't know, maybe 11 days, drove up and fished Winnipeg. And it didn't disappoint. I personally didn't catch any of those 30-inch walleyes. I had a friend catch, several over 25, 7, 29. We caught plenty of fish every day. We were very lucky to have truck travel. We didn't have to unload the trailer and use the snowmobiles. My buddy Mike Howe owned a guide service and fished Lake Peck for many, many years. A very large guide service Mike Howe owned that he just sold this year. Where you'd get stuck, but we had about 90 feet of snatch strap and shackles, and but it was still better than having to drive miles and miles on a snow machine and fish outside. And truck fishing, if anybody's ever fished out of the truck, well, you've got heat, you got a radio, easy to move. And, whether you're on Devil's Lake, which is very popular for truck fishing when it is permitted.
What do you mean by truck fishing?
Like Perch Patrol. A lot of time the Perch Patrol, they're just out driving around in the Suburbans and drilling and dropping down and, whacking perch and walleyes, occasionally big northerns. But Lake Winnipeg. Matter of fact, this year I plan to go back.
Okay.
Because it also coincides with Dave Gens in the Invitational at the end of March. And, Dave is a personal friend of mine.
Yes.
His birthday was 2 days ago. I missed it. I was not there. Usually we spend his birthday on ice. So prior to that, Dave and I, we talk, every month or every week. And I always say, Dave, what are you doing for your birthday? And he'll go, where are we going fishing?
Yeah.
And this year we didn't fish. So Dave also lives on the Mississippi River, and he has a River Pro jet boat.
Wow.
So we'll go out and we'll catch walleyes and smallmouth with red tails that we catch out of the creek. And then just it's amazing how, if you're using red tail compared to any other type of shiner or rubber grub, that he'll outfish you 10-1.
Red-tailed chubs. Boy, I haven't heard that in a long time. The only place I ever saw that was like northern Wisconsin, very northern Wisconsin.
Yeah, he just goes with the small hook and wades in the creek and catches them. And Dave actually has a stainless steel milk tank where, he'll catch a few and keep them for when we go fishing. And all summer long, he'll be out in his jet boat.
Oh, wow. Red-tailed chubs. When you say small hook, how small do you mean?
No, he's like 10 or smaller. I mean,
wow.
Very, very tiny hook.
And what, a piece of corn or something?
A lot of time, nothing.
Just a bare hook.
Yeah, just a bare hook. Excuse the finger. I don't know if it makes it. Does it make a difference whether I turn the camera one way or the other, Jay?
You're just a little smaller picture there. That's no big deal.
Other than my big fat head.
You're a much bigger picture like that. So are you going to be fishing the Fox chain?
Boy, sorry about that, guys. Me and technology. Oh boy. There we go. We're back at it. So, it's funny. I talk about me and technology, so here's a little bit of technology. If you're in my barn, we still have, hear that? There's a dial tone on my rotary dial phone.
It still works, huh?
Yep. We got a jukebox with 45s. So, yeah. So this here is, matter of fact, I had to upload this SteamYard to get on this evening.
Huh. So do you, I bet you have a Vexilar, though.
A Vexilar?
Yep. Yeah, what you got? 8 of them? Yeah.
Well, no, there's 2. There's 8. There's about, I don't know. There's a dozen here, and I got some new ones in the box. I got some Vexlar. They make a wonderful underwater camera. The clarity is amazing on the Vexlar camera. People always say it's big, it's heavy, or it's a little bulkier compared to some of the competition. But the quality of the camera is amazing. And camera is just a tool, and it's only as good as the water clarity. So a lot of
Yes.
times you question,
Yes.
"Gee, what should we get? Should we get a flasher? What type of electronics should we get?" Well, you always want to go, for me, it's a Vexlar, because if you're in stained water, that camera, just like the human eye, will only see that far.
Yes.
Plus, throughout the whole water column, as when you're running a Vexlar, you can see everything in. So if I'm in 30 feet of water and crappie are 10 feet off the bottom, well, I can see them. The camera, unless it's there, it's not going to see them. Plus, with the Vexlar, I can tell the mood of the fish in reaction to my bait. I can tell the bottom composition. So the best way to describe this is, if you have a super ball and you dropped it on the carpet and it doesn't really bounce. Well, as that transducer sends out a signal out of the crystal, it goes down, it hits that soft bottom, it absorbs into the bottom and comes back, and it actually produces a wider band in the red at the bottom. If it's a hard bottom, like that super ball, it bounces and comes right back. It's a thin red line on the bottom of your Vexlar. So it tells you many things. If there's weeds, and actually anybody that could spend, a couple minutes with me, even on their own, you will even know if your bait's gone by the return signal on your flasher. So as you're jigging, and then say you have a maggot or a piece of plastic on there, it will provide a certain width of the band. Well, if it's gone, it actually shrinks. Or if you're running a horizontal bait and the fish hits it and it turns like this, well, the signal that it hits, it's not as big. And then it changes. So your bait's been hit or gone. So the flasher unit is a must. And even an FL8, which there's plenty behind me on the counter when I'm guiding, most of these units that I have here are for my customers when we're out on the water. That's going to bring more fish topside than anything else.
Now, where do you guide?
I guide in southern Wisconsin and in northern Illinois. So whether it's Chavanaugh, the Chain of Lakes, and the Chain of Lakes, is a wonderful body of water. There's actually 45 miles of water system with 15 different lakes, and people don't even understand that there's 15 miles. 15 different lakes, excuse me. There's many obscure ones because most people know like Marie, Channel, Passaic, but they don't know about Redhead. Not all of them produce fish either because, like Grass Lake is kind of a shallow mud hole. That's the bars at the one famous one.
Blarney Island. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah. But there's actually some deep water over 40 feet. So there's deep water. And a lot of times big crappies will suspend over that deep water, and with technology, we've found in the last 10 years that, there's fish there. Prior to that, I remember 20 years ago, you basically, say you went to Channel Lake and you fished 10 feet or less in the weeds on the north or south end. And Channel Lake is 1.3 miles long, but in the center on the eastern edge, there's 40 plus feet of water, and it's amazing, especially if we have a deep freeze with a lot of snow. A lot of fish will hide out there. And that's kind of just north and to the right where the old Mentones is, which
I remember Mentones. Yeah.
Mentones is all bulldozed. And then Kurt, which owns the bait shop there and bar, the next bite, that's all his property. So he has a restaurant and bar and a bait shop across the street, but he also owns the property where Mentones was, and you can park your ATV, your snowmobile, or just, your truck and walk out from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Now, there's a lot of natural resources where you don't necessarily have to cross the border. Some of my biggest fish have, come from Illinois. And my motto is, and I should, I coined the phrase hashtag or whatever, you can't catch them from the couch. That's just a fact. Because when I'm doing seminars for the local clubs, whether, Arlington Angler, Riverside Fishing Club, there's a lot of guys that will not tell you specifics, but I will tell you exactly where to go, where to park. Parking is a problem here in Illinois, so, you
It
have
is.
all, so it's like Choppers on 176. The owners there is great. So if you go in and have breakfast, have a pop, a beer, a bowl of chili, he's not going to charge you. Where other guys, they might charge you as much as $15 to park. So you go to Choppers Bar on 176, walk across the street, Channel Lake, and any fish that you need or want to catch, whether it be muskie, walleye, it's in Channel Lake.
Oh yeah. So we have a comment from the audience. It's Kenneth O'Malley. You probably know him.
Yeah. Ken's. It's funny. Ken's a good friend I've known for years, and I remember. I think I was working the Indiana store for Clam doing a retail event, and Ken was like, he's not on social media, and I'm like, Ken, you need to get on social media because Ford Motor Company with 3.5 million people and free, can't be wrong.
Yeah.
And Ken, and I've known Ken for I couldn't tell you how many years, but he has now he's on Facebook. He has Husker Outdoors, which is on Facebook. Ken is, he's almost out there 365 days a year.
Yes.
Ken is out there, day in and day out, whether he's catching bluegill or bass, he's poking the local waters in his area.
And Ken said, hey guys, then there's another guy, he's just called himself Facebook user. Hey guys, let me know who you are. I love it when you comment. I love it when you interact with us. Just let me know who you are. He said, looking forward to getting back on the hunt with you guys. He said it took a minute, but he found us. Kenneth O'Malley said, great advice for sure, Todd. Ken, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, no, Ken's a stand-up guy, and matter of fact, in 2 weeks,
Jim Copcho.
Ken will be at in Oshkosh. There's a new ice fishing show in Oshkosh. Ken will be out there for Ice Junkie Outdoors. I'm actually gonna assist a little bit at the Cold Snap booth. Cold Snap has a bunch of wonderful products, and maybe one with my name on it.
Wow.
Cold Snap. Cold Snap is around 20 years. They're hitting Cold Snap Outdoors has actually been around for 20 years. They actually came into fruition when Dan Hogue, the owner, designed an auger cover for Jiffy. And then from there, it just spawned into auger covers for other manufacturers' augers. And then Dan has a motto: if you have an idea, bring it to the forefront, and then he'll see if it's viable. And that's where the T2 toothpick came from. So for years I had seen a product, and back in the old days when we were fishing in like the Trap Attack days, I'd see the old timers. They would take a piece of copper, 4 or 5 inches, smash the end, grind a little groove in it, and have a lanyard, and they'd hook it through their suit, and then they would use that to go down and retrieve their little jig when the fish inhaled it. And then
Wow.
I had seen there was one commercially made, and then I was making them actually out of toothbrushes. And I started sending them out to my friends like Rod Wooten in Iowa. He's like, hey, can you make me one? And so I'd get a toothbrush and I'd grind it down and polish it and make them. And then there was another gentleman in Minnesota that was using a like a medical stir stick, almost like a miniature tongue depressor that was grinding grooves. So, it's a accumulation of many people over years, to come up with this. And then, I brought it to Dan. I said, Dan, hey, what do you think about this? And currently we have 2 sizes of the toothpick. I think there's one right here. So there's many things that the toothpick does. So you can retrieve your jig, and you think if you buy a tungsten jig, it's pretty, it's got paint on it, but also see tungsten melts, I don't know, at 3,700 degrees. Well, that
you can't get anything there. Yeah.
The wire hook that it's glued to or soldered, is going to melt at 600. Okay, so if you go down there with forceps, 2 things are going to happen. You're going to burn the paint off your jig with the forceps, and that's the new motto. That's the new motto by Cold Snap Outdoors is forget the forceps, or you're going to bust the tungsten loose from that little wire hook.
Okay, we have a few comments we got to catch up on here. First of all, Jim Copcho is in the house tonight.
Jimmy.
Great to see you, Jim. Fantastic guy. And also we have International Freshwater Fishing Hall of Famer Jim Grant here. And Jim Grant said, what a fabulous ice angler, simply one of the very best. Jim Grant also says, I put him up against anyone and go and so knowledgeable, spreading nothing but the truth.
And that's part of my problem. It's ironic. Years ago, I was in the city of Chicago doing a seminar, and there was 70, 80 guys in the room. And there's this old guy. I'll never forget his name. His name was John Olivet. And this guy lived in the high rise in Chicago, a multimillionaire, had property in Canada. And he said, and I didn't know him at the time, he said, kid, you'll never be Babe Winkleman. And I'm like, during my seminar, and it kind of, drew me back a little bit. And I'm like, what do you mean? He says, you're too honest.
Oh,
good. And well, the thing is there's so many products on the market today. And part of it's the salesmanship. But, a lot of stuff is designed to catch fishermen.
It is. A lot of them are. You're absolutely right.
And you look, if you go back, to Jay, if you go back, and I don't know if your dad or your grandpa fished, but they were pretty successful, and they didn't have 80% of the crap that we have, or you look, back, if you ice fished back in the day, all we had were like rocker jigs and the paint got burned off. What is the Domino's guy there?
No, just people calling. It never fails. Nobody calls me until I start the podcast.
Yeah. It was Papa John's.
Out of the way.
Yeah, wonder. So, you think about it, you had a jig, whatever color it was, even if it was a horizontal or vertical rocker jig, and you caught so many fish, the paint got burned off it. And you were down to the lead color because we didn't have tungsten, and you were still catching fish.
Jim Costco just said John Olivet is still around and still sitting in on seminars.
No way. Yeah, but him telling me, he's like, kid, you're just too honest. That was, and the bottom line is, and I see these things. It's even on TV shows, professionals do it for a living. When I see people reeling against the drag that puts line twists, And
Oh
people make
no.
these, but it's, what, you see this stuff and I just cringe, and people want to make these comments, I was in Canada several years ago fishing, and the owner of the resort, he's like, well, there's fish that never seen a hook before. And I'm thinking, how do you know? They
Yeah.
don't have internet. How do you know that fish doesn't have internet? It's kind of like the Wonder Bread craze. That is what catches fishermen. The Wonder Bread color.
Yes.
You and I are old enough. That's what we used for boot liners when we wanted to go sledding, in 1975.
I also
Fish
have
don't
used the
know,
color. I've used the color Wonder Bread on Lake Erie to catch walleyes. It actually
but
works. But I
but
got
but the
caught up in
fish,
that craze too.
but the fish don't know of it. The
No.
fish doesn't know that color. You think back in the day of all those spoons on Lake Erie before they migrated anywhere else, the Kevorkian and the Superman, Dreamsicle.
Yep. Somebody wants to know if you're going to go to Upper Red before New Year's.
Who's asking?
It says Facebook user.
Oh, well, I think on the 11th of this month, I might be going. I might be going
There you
alone.
go.
I'm,
Alone?
you know what? I'm to the point now. You know what? I get in my truck. A few years ago, I was in North Dakota, then Minnesota, Canada, back to Minnesota, and thousands of miles, and I was by myself. And I've got friends over the ice belt, so it's like, I was up in we were at Devil's Lake with Jason Mitchell and Dave Gens, and we were teaching ice fishing school. And then when the school got done from there, I went 100 and some miles north. I went to Metagoshi, fished up there, came back there to Devil's Lake. Then I went over to Western Minnesota, and with Rick Johnson. We stayed at Gen's cabin. Dave wasn't around. He had something to do. And then from there, I went to Canada through International Falls. I fished with Mike Patterson and Gillespie and Pete Mena, just a bunch of us hanging out for a few days. And this was all by myself, so I got no problem just hanging out and putting on miles,
It was Jim Copch who asked about the Upper Red, and Ken wants to know when is he getting an invite to ice fish up by you.
You know what? Kind of like my barn, the door is always open, but I don't need to ask. I don't want to say beg anybody to come with me.
Yeah.
You know what? I got 4 seats in the truck, whether they're filled or not. Preferably, I like people to have their own machine. I don't want 3 other people in my truck that do not own a snowmobile or ATV, because over the years, I was kind of like the social committee and I'm giving rides. Well, if I'm giving rides, I'm not fishing. And at the end of the day, when I got to shuttle everybody in, that's like right here. We'll flip her around. See this? These are bins that are packed, ready to go with food at any given time. And you'll see there's paper plates, there's fish mix, there's stacks of bins over there. There's 7 bins that at any given moment that, should we want to go, everybody get in the truck, but that's kind of to the point where I'm at right now is, I prefer everybody have a machine, and if you're an ice fisherman, get a snowmobile. That's one thing people always ask, what should I get? Well, it depends. If you're an ice fisherman, you'll never be shut down. If there's no snow or 3 feet of snow, you'll never be shut down. 3 feet of snow, I don't care if you have ATV with tracks, I've shoveled them out and pulled them back to shore. So, just, and snowmobiles are much cheaper than an ATV. So an ATV, you're going to spend about $2,000 for a piece of junk. For $2,000, you can get a pretty nice snowmobile that's going to do everything you need and outfit it for a fun day on the ice. And matter of fact, we're taking a trip in January, and we're going to be gone for several days in Wisconsin. We got a house rented that'll sleep like 20 people. But
wow.
Dave Gens and his daughter Kathy are coming. It's like no. And if we want to ride from Clan Lake to Nemacoggin, it's like, no, you got to have a machine. I can't be shuttling everybody, a half hour, 40 minutes away.
Okay, Jim Copcho said the Mohawks will be near Grand Rapids first week of January.
The Mohawks, yeah, Bill Lanham, yep. And in memory of our good friend Al. Yep. That's Al that passed away several years ago unexpectedly, cancer, but it's
Boy, Jim Copcho, I gotta tell you, man, sure is good to talk to you again. Been a while, buddy. Jim Copcho and I we did a lot together on Shabanaw Lake, and he taught me a lot about about Heideke too. So, and we're talking back in the 90s,
when you lived and did the DeKalb County Chronicle.
Yeah.
Yeah, were you outdoor writer for them?
Then I went to the Peru News Tribune.
That was a weekly publication, wasn't it? Every week
it was,
in there?
Yeah, I had a weekly column in the Daily Chronicle. Yeah.
But,
I tell a long time ago.
The barn's always open. There's usually something in the smoker, whether we're doing jerky or pork shoulder. There's always a barn party going on here, and people want to learn and hang out. That's what I'm about. I used to tournament fish, and I just got away from the tournament side, and the tournament actually for ice fishing, the circuit fell apart in about 2007, and ever since then it's never been the same. So the education portion, I do a lot of benefits. Matter of fact, I'm selling a lot of those Vexilars, as even guiding, where I've kind of gotten away from the guiding. And I still donate to different charities, or if somebody comes to me for a fundraiser. I'm trying to think in January, the Hard Water Heroes, which is, I'm trying to think what the parent organization, which will be on Lauderdale Lakes in Wisconsin, which is right over the border just north of Elkhorn. This, I think, is the 4th or 5th year that we take veterans and now first responders. It's limited to 30. Breakfast is provided, lunch is provided, and we take veterans fishing. And last year we had some veterans actually come from Ohio, as far as away from Ohio.
Wow.
Come fishing.
I'll tell you about that veteran fishing. I'll tell you about that veteran fishing thing. Being a veteran myself, you never know whose life you changed, or maybe even whose life you saved.
Yeah.
Something as simple as taking them fishing. There's a veterans organization down here where I live, where I reached out to them, and I was in a bad way back in 2015. And this guy came and got me. He drove 100 miles to get me to drive 90 miles back to this place where we fished, fed me lunch, breakfast and lunch, and then drove me back home, cleaned the fish we caught for me, and drove me back to my house. And it meant so much to me. It's just another fishing trip to him. But I can tell you, man, that my hat's off to you for supporting our veterans.
It's just something that I was built with. Even as a young kid, I used to teach handicapped kids how to swim. And then I'm trying to think, let's see, in about 2000 and I'm trying to think if it was 2004, a friend of mine, Brent Beckwith, he started a charity, the Andrea Lynn, which was his mother's name, that passed away from cancer. He started Walk on Water. I don't know if you ever heard of Walk on Water, but Walk on Water was a huge ice fishing derby that was held on Bangs Lake in Wakanda, Illinois. And, as it in the later years, we were upwards of almost 400 paid entries, not counting women and children. So trying to think over the years, if it was 14 plus years or more that we raised over $90,000 and we gave that back to the community. You had to have cancer and you had to live in Illinois.
Wow. Jim Compcho said, no, we just have a few minutes left, but could you talk a little bit about hunting big bluegill?
Doing your homework is key on that. Not every body of water is going to produce. People talk about genetics, but a lot of it boils down to food. Food is the key thing. So it's people say, oh, the fish are stunted. Well, they're stunted because there's not enough food. If you took that bluegill out and put it in a tank at home and fed it, it's going to grow. So doing your homework, whether it's creel surveys, other fishermen, that is the huge, that is huge, because that's what I hunt. That's why I go to Metagoshi. About 4 or 5 years ago, there was an ice fishing tournament, the North American Ice Fishing Circuit, which is now defunct. They had a 16 bag limit, and it was at about 16 pounds. It was a 1 pound average for bluegills.
1 pound average. Wow.
A 1 pound average for the winner. So, the right place at the right time, that's where you want to go. And throughout it's bottom line is doing your homework. You can't catch them from the couch, and
yes,
just putting in the homework. Everybody wants things spoon fed or handed to them, but I drive. I couldn't tell you for how many years, but I'm at 10,000 miles, and sometimes holding 7 state licenses and Canada. I'm not catching, bluegills in Canada, but, it's about, doing the legwork. It's like anything in life, if you want to be a good baseball player, you're out there practicing every day, or basketball, you're out there shooting hoops. It isn't by chance, that I've caught a 17.5-inch crappie, how many 1 pound bluegills, it's because I'm out there actively pursuing the fish.
Whoa. I'm thinking about that 17.5-inch bluegill. Wow. No, not
crappie.
Bluegill. Crappie. Yeah,
crappie,
no such thing as
crappie. That was 3 pounds 2 ounces.
There you go, man.
It's the Crappie Chronicles. Adam Bartuzik and Matt Waldron from Vexlar, and they're gonna kill me. The other 2 fellas. Shit. I hate to do that to them, but you guys check out the Crappie Chronicles YouTube channel, and these guys are going all over the country just chasing giant crappies. Last season they went out to Maine. They all live in Minnesota, around the metro area, and they're hunting giant crappies. So they went to Maine in pursuit for them. That's the whole thing, is doing your homework. Just like for walleyes. Oh, geez, you want to catch a big one? You're going to go to Lake Erie. You're going to go to Winnipeg. I remember as a kid, my brother and I in the early 80s.
Was that big crappie you caught in Illinois?
Yeah.
That was a stud coming from Illinois.
Well, you know what? Every now and then, Shabanock kicks out those big ones, and basically those big ones. And they're an F7, and an F7 is a cross, and that's the scientific name when they cross between a white and a black. When the white and the black cross, it's called an F7, and when they catch those big ones at Shabanock, that's what it is. But I remember back in the 80s going to Dale Hollow to catch smallmouth, because that's maybe we catch a world record. Arkansas, Greer's Ferry for the walleye. That's, they say the next, it's doing your homework, due diligence, studying. Okay. Also is going at the right time of the year.
Yes. Yes.
It's no different from you. If you wanted to, catch a big redfish, well, you may not catch a big redfish in July. Whatever month the big redfish, are coming in.
You have to go offshore for them in July. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know where they are. I just can't get to them.
But
Well,
it's
Gulf of Mexico is no joke, man. It can be a lot meaner than Lake Erie.
Yeah. I don't know about that, Lee. You talk to anybody that's been in the Coast Guard or in the Navy, because of the shallow water and the wind, they say that's worse than some of the oceans, actually, Lake Erie. And I've been out there and I've watched other boats and laughed and going, look at those sissies. And in 30 minutes, having to reel in a line instead of doing 50 miles an hour in the Lund Pro V with the 300, doing 9 miles an hour, going from 50 to 9 to get back, because all the little or in the bass boats that were out, out by 5 can, 6 can, or 9 mile, the power plant, and doing, 8, 9 miles an hour to get back.
Well, also, you remember I worked on rigs in the Gulf of Mexico, and I have seen some waves that are just, my goodness.
Yeah. So yeah, big bluegills, that's something that's near and dear. So anybody that fishes with me, if I bring them to a spot, I ask them, any fish over 9 inches, please return it. Because once a fish reaches 9 inches, that's made it past so much predation, whether it be other fish, a bird, or human. Just put it back. So we catch that 10 inches. And depending on where it's from, and a little bit of genetics and the forage, once it gets over 10, you might be pushing a pound. And that's the whole thing. Why do we fish? Do we go fishing to catch 4 and 5 inch bluegills? No, we want to catch a whopper. But they can't all go home in a bucket.
They can't. And I agree with you there. In fact, even the South has gone to, releasing the big redfish, because they're starting to realize that those are the big girls that reproduce. They're going to have 1 million eggs inside of them.
Mm-hmm.
So even down here now, they're starting to get the catch and release ethic. Well, Todd, we're at 42 after the hour. Do you have any shout outs you'd like to do? Any thank yous, any organizations, companies, people, clubs?
So I'm going on almost 20 years with Clam Outdoors, and to see how Clam Outdoors has grown over the years, just, when they started out with suits and now rods, reels, sheenies. I mean, it's just amazing to see now that they're in their third building at 200,000 square feet, in by Rogers, Minnesota, is amazing. Vexlar, Vexlar is tried and true. They started out, with actually a rangefinder in the golf industry, and then watching them with the depth therm and how they, since the 60s just evolved. And, it's just a staple, it's real-time fishing, people, it's just, it's tried and true. It's bulletproof. It's one of those things. It's almost as good as a tattoo. Because how many things in your life could you purchase that will last you for the rest of your life? And a Vexlar is one of those.
Like you said, a tattoo, yeah. Much to my chagrin, yeah.
Exactly. How many things, get lost, stolen, broken, rot away. But, as long as you hold on to that Vexlar. And one thing I do with all my Vexlars, I put my name and my zip code on it. Because more than once, we found a Vexlar out on the ice, because if people have a machine or it falls out of their sled while they're walking, if there's no name, how do you return it? So it's best to put your name and a zip code, because if an honest person finds it, you will get it back. And then the other, the giant shout out to Cold Snap Outdoors and Dan Hogue and his group. They're kind of cutting edge. Always every year they like to come out with something new. The new rods. So starting with the covers. So the Cold Snap cover for the auger, you don't have to touch it. That's hands free, on and off. You don't have to take a rubber band and put it over the top.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just,
what you always
you
got
know,
to do. Yeah.
and you got something that's razor sharp that you're not going to lose a digit or end your day where you got to go to the hospital because you got cut. Excuse me. In rods, the toothpick. He's starting an apparel line right now. The tamer. So there's the tamer was kind of neat. It's got self-adhesive and it's a sponge block. So you could stick it on your ice shanty, you could stick it on your boat, whether you want to put your forceps, hang crankbaits off it, or keep your T2 toothpick in there. It's amazing. So, there's like John Thielen and some other guys on TV, you're starting to see them on their boat.
Cool.
Yep. So I appreciate everybody coming by this evening, supporting, let's fishing with you, Jay, me, my sponsors, and the 8th through the 10th, I believe it is, in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I will be there at the new fishing show. Starting tomorrow, all my brothers from Clam and Vexlar will be at the St. Paul show. I believe it's the 30th year, the world's largest ice fishing show, starting tomorrow in St. Paul at the River Center, right where the other hockey team plays.
The other hockey team.
The other hockey team plays, they're there. So that's a wonderful show, like 30 years, and it's a neat experience if you've never been there. Anything in ice fishing, whether it's a $2 jig or a $60,000 ice castle.
Ice castle. Wow.
Yeah, any you're
or a snow cat.
No. The ice castle is, your permanent fish houses. Some of them have triple axles,
Okay.
they have crown molding, wine fridges, heat, and now they're multi-purpose, because a lot of people now use them in the summertime as campers. They're toy haulers. Yeah.
Well, Todd, I was just thinking that back when you and I were kids, and you just like grabbed those rubber boots and walked out on the ice with a spud bar and a 5-gallon bucket, and you sit on the 5-gallon bucket. Now they have wine fridges.
You know what? It's funny. If I took a trip up the stairs in the barn, and I actually have a metal 5-gallon bucket from when I was a kid. It was that long ago. They didn't have plastic buckets. There was metal 5 gallons. And then we had old Coleman catalytic heaters. And there was, and I had a couple brothers, so it's like we only had one heater and one, so it's like we'd take turns sitting on the bucket, with the old Coleman heater under, upside down, with the bucket on top of that.
So you had a heated bucket you sat on. And if you left it on there for too long, it would melt your snow pants. Yeah.
Cooked buns. So
yep. A galvanized metal bucket. Yeah.
Hopefully we could do it again. I plan on like I said, around I think when I leave Oshkosh, I'm gonna go to Upper Red, and then I'm gonna go over by Dave Gens, fish with him for a few days. I just I've got a little slow start. The weather wasn't conducive this year to our normal start. Normally on Thanksgiving Day, I'm on Upper Red or on Metagoshi. It just wasn't quite right, and to make the drive. And if there's anybody listen that's in the enclosed trailer business, I'm looking for an enclosed snowmobile trailer. I've got cash in hand. I'm ready to buy. I'm probably going to have one built. So, because I don't like, I have a Arctic Cat Bearcat. I don't like trailering it on an open trailer. You get the snow, the salt, the grime in the bearings, the wheels, when you're investing, 15 to 20 grand, you like to protect it.
Oh yeah. We have a couple more comments from Roy Widgeon. He's from Kayak USA, does a magazine. Also, he promotes kayak fishing. He said hello, and also he said ice fishing is a cool sport. And when we were talking about the galvanized bucket, he said that's a heated seat. Yep.
Where's Roy from?
Virginia.
Virginia. Okay. You know what? Up in, I think it's West Virginia, actually, they get a little bit of ice. And talking with Corey Studer, which is in charge of their marketing and basically runs Vexlar now, they were actually, there's a bait shop somewhere over there that they sell a few Vexlars actually in his neighborhood. And actually with Vexlar, you can use those in your kayak. They actually have transducers that will shoot through the hull. So it's just not an ice fishing.
That's nice. Roy just said there's no ice where he lives, and I get that. He's a kayak fisherman. So just like we're down here, there never has been ice down here except in people's, mixed drinks.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with a little bit of that.
Well, guys, man, this has been a fantastic podcast. Thank you so much, Todd. It's always great to do a podcast with you, and just the interaction I had with all you guys. I thank you so much for the interaction that makes the podcast so much. It just puts the icing on the cake. I love podcasting no matter what happens, but man, when people are asking questions and talking, it's fantastic, guys. Thank you so much for your questions. And Todd, thank you so much for your time. I wish you the best of luck. Best of luck in your ice fishing season, man. Be safe out there, Todd.
All right. Have a good evening, Jay. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Stick around, Todd. I'd like to talk to you for like 1 minute afterwards.
And for anybody that doesn't have ice and they open water fish, go check out cna't rods.
cna't rods, man. Jim Grant, International Freshwater Fishing Hall of Famer. Jim Grant makes some of the best rods. I have about 6 of them.
I got a couple behind me. Yep. And he sponsors the tarpon tournament down there in Florida. Yeah. So anybody that can ice fish, go check out cna't rods. You won't be disappointed. And they're American made. They're made right here in Illinois. They're not overseas.
Arlington Heights, Illinois. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Made by an absolute legend in the fishing industry.
You got it. All right. Have a good evening,
all right,
everybody.
Guys, I'm gonna end the show. Guys, it's Wednesday. No, it's Thursday night now. I always lose track of days. It's Thursday night, man. Make your plans. Get out there. Because like Todd said, you can't catch fish. One of the few absolutes about fishing is you absolutely will not catch any fish sitting on your couch. With that, I'm going to end the podcast.